Hey viewers, welcome back to the Renewalism Show. Very exciting episode this one. Huh? For those of you who are joining us for the first time, let me just tell you a little about renewalism. And meanwhile, I've just put in a note to drop in your comments and questions on the side. So renewalism is something that we've been doing this show for the last 24 days. It's intended to get you to get more familiar with the book renewal. And why the book renewal? Because it's about renewal of the human spirit, of human consciousness, and of human interactions with the planet. The byline of the book is Your Unexpected Role in Saving the Planet. No jokes. This is a book that was actually channeled to me. I was the medium, channeled by an energy form I would call Guru Prana Chandra, who is the central character of the book. And it is a discourse by him, which was made in December to me, but September last year, as documented in the book. And in December, when I was writing this, he was talking about habits for renewal of individuals at a mind, body, spirit level. Habits for renewal of our relationships with elders, kids, with colleagues, all 360-degree relationships around us, and with plants, with planet, with pollution, with sustenance. And at the third level, he's talking about our role and the habits we can create in changing systems. Systems like the man-made order of how we look at disease, how we look at schooling, how we look at industry, how we look at governance. And we've had various guests on this show talking about policy matters, talking about self-reliance on medication, talking about pollution and sustenance, solar energy, and of course, we've had guests talking about self renewal. And just yesterday, we had a wonderful talk with a lady who's an author, and she runs programs on pain and suffering. Today, we are talking about a set of habits around the subject of cleansing our energy. Those of you who've been with us for a while might remember we had a talk about tidying up your space, which is decluttering at a bodily level, and then tidying up time. And today we're talking about tidying up energy. And energy is what is it manifests in our karma. It's the energetic mind stream that goes from life to life. So what we do with our energy actually has karmic imprints. And so I thought that it would be ideal if I could get somebody who's deeply entrenched in the philosophies and the core concepts of karma and energetic movement as the Tibetan Buddhists are. And I have for you on this show with me today, Kabir Saxena. He's been a monk for a good 18 and a half years, and he heads the Tushita chapter in Delhi, the Tushita School of the Foundation for Preservation of the Mahayana tradition. He is a speaker internationally and a great Buddhist practitioner. So that said, I'm going to discuss with him the habit that says tidy up energy of body, speech, and mind. You can read that in the paperback. It's available on Amazon. You can go over to renewalism.com. That's the site that's flashing on your screen now, and pick up an e-copy or order it anywhere in the world. The links are available there. That said, what is the tidying up of energy of body, speech, and mind? Well, as we will discuss today, in the body, at a body level, with the bodily energy, if we are mindful and aware of three things: killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct, we are right on track. We are not likely to pollute our karma. Now, I'm going to bring Kabir here because this is getting heavy. Kabir ji will explain to us what it actually means to talk about killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct to start with. Good evening, sir. Nice to have you on the show.
Good evening, Sandeepji. Good evening.
So,
So,
I was just familiarizing viewers with the first set of three energy contaminators. And I myself, when I was first introduced to this as a Tibetan Buddhist, was wondering, well, killing is the last thing on my mind. I'm not a murderer, I'm not an assassin. So, how is that going to affect me in any which way?
okay.
At all,
Uh,
masters or gurus, and I'd like you to share, please.
okay. So, of course, this is a vast topic. We could talk about it for hours. But let's take killing first. Um, of course, very few of us or our viewers would be thinking of killing a person, a human being. But I don't think many of us would think twice about swatting a mosquito or a fly, as one of my family relations did today with great gusto with one of these things that look like a tennis racket. You know, you go wham. Now,
Yeah.
that is killing. That is taking a life. That is taking the life of a being that wants to live, that has a consciousness. Maybe a very primitive one, but it has a consciousness. So that leaves a residue on our mind, on our consciousness, that act of killing. So, from a Buddhist perspective, if that act of killing is not purified, then it builds up its potential, its karmic energy builds up, and it can have an extremely powerful negative consequence for oneself, for the person who is killed.
Hmm.
If one were to swat a mosquito and immediately regret it, that would, of course, immediately begin to offset the consequence because one is feeling a genuine regret. And then there are other methods one can engage in. But the point to see here with the whole of the 10 on non-virtuous actions, of which you have mentioned three connected with the body: killing, stealing, sexual misconduct. The point is that they set up habitual patterns in the mind. Even the thought of stealing, even the thought of killing, even the thought of any kind of sexual overindulgence, or using sexuality to harm others, or using it with violence or greed, even a thought of that pollutes
Hmm.
consciousness. It's a kind of a flickering thought which can build up, and then actually lead to action. You see? So that's the point. These small, everything starts small, yeah, like a seed, like a human being starts
Yeah.
as a tiny cell, builds up. So a thought patterns build up, and remember, they're all having an effect on the subtle winds and energies of the body. On
Wow.
the what we call the Vajra body or the subtle body, that is affected by our thoughts totally. So even
So this
before
is
we
a kind of
action, yeah,
sorry. This is a kind of snowballing that happens with one mosquito, or does it happen when you just make a habit of killing mosquitoes?
well, the point is that killing one, then it's easier to kill another one. You don't feel any regret. You feel that if a mosquito is there, it deserves to be killed because, and that's ego, right? The mosquito's
Right.
life means nothing. It's buzzing. I'm
Right.
afraid I might get sick, blah, 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 or a cockroach, whatever it is. And so we kill it, you know, and take pleasure in it, actually. Take yeah, I've killed it. You feel good about it. It's not like you do it with regret or with sort of, oh, I'm really sorry, mosquito, but I'm going to have to kill you. No, not even that. Wham.
Hmm.
So that leaves a very powerful imprint on consciousness, which then builds. Like leaving a tiny bit of garlic in the fridge and you didn't cover it, or some onion, and after a while you open
What
it,
an
the
analogy.
fridge smells. So the whole
Oh,
it pollutes the whole consciousness, in that way. And then,
oh, that's a fantastic example. I think our viewers would have got that
uh,
immediately, instantly. No, but I was just thinking about the other one. For example, does kleptomania get covered under stealing, or is that an
of course,
unconscious?
of course, it's stealing. It's compulsive stealing, right? You can't help it. And that would have started as a small action of stealing, which we would say over lifetimes, a snowball possibly, or even in one life, into someone who can't help but steal whenever they see something they like in a shop. So that's the thing. That's the incredibly difficult and dangerous aspect of action, because karma just means action, but action has consequences. So if we look lifetime to lifetime, as we do in Buddhism, that can
Hmm.
become a dreadful, pernicious habit in the future, and which then keeps
And
on giving suffering results. That's the point. It keeps on giving more and more suffering results for us and for others. Yeah.
and I suppose by extension of that logic, mundane things like a fleeting glance to the other sex, does that also like become sexual misconduct at a practical level?
Well,
Is
it
that
depends
polluting?
how strict you want to be. If you've read your Bible, I think Christ says that it's adultery even to look at another woman with that kind of thought. So, Christianity, well, Christ certainly thinks that that was something which is tantamount to a form of sexual misconduct. Well, no, here mainly sexual misconduct means actual adultery or misusing sexuality to harm another and so forth. But yes, it starts in a small way, doesn't it, Sandeep ji? You start looking at at people or people's wives. Before you know it,
Yeah.
you build up. It snowballs. You feel sexual desire, and then you want to fulfill that desire. But it starts as a small thought. Things start as seeds, don't they? Whether it's a huge Bodhi tree or an oak tree or a human being. And so these things start as what one teacher puts it as flickering thoughts. Flickering thoughts. We don't pay them much attention. They come and they go. They come and they go. But then it builds up, and then we identify with them. So thoughts are the foot soldiers of the ego. So the ego is getting bolstered and more powerful. Then you think, I want this, or I don't want that. I want to harm that person. What did it start
Hmm.
with? Just a thought. And then the thought built up, built up, built up. Before you know it, you can't help yourself.
The
And
smell of garlic is all over the fridge.
yeah, yeah. It's a major
So we have
operation to clean it up.
We have a few interesting questions coming in. I'm going to take them one by one.
Please.
Anelia says, how can we purify the
That's
negativities?
very important. So we have a fourfold process in Buddhism. First, we have to feel some regret. If you don't feel any regret, then of course you won't want to purify. So not guilt, though. We say guilt is useless. It's a crippling emotion. Regret is like if you take poison by mistake, you feel regret and you want to cleanse your stomach and cleanse your system. But you don't sit there saying, oh, how evil I am, blah, blah, blah. You actually get down to doing something about it. So that's regret. Then you develop compassion and a sense of uh, devoting yourself to your tradition or your principles or whatever, like that. So you develop compassion, which is like developing this positive intention to benefit others, because negative actions harm others and oneself. So you develop this positivity. Then you engage in a particular method or action to directly counter the negative action you've done. So we have various purificatory practices in Buddhism, prostrations, mantras. It could be anything. It could be reading texts. It could be engaging in acts of kindness deliberately as an antidote to that negative action, to
Mhm.
helping others, meditating on love and compassion, meditating on ultimate truth. All of these are methods. Then the fourth
Hmm.
thing is to have some kind of determination, at least to reduce the frequency of that negative action. If you feel you cannot stop stealing completely right now, today, then at least a promise, okay, for the next 2 or 3 days, I'm not going to steal anything, or not verbally abuse somebody, or not, whatever, because there are 10 of these actions. And the verbal ones can be very easy to commit, harsh speech, divisive speech, lying, and then idle gossip, gupshup. When you have chai,
Hmm.
when you have a cup of tea in your hand, then there's a tendency for idle gossip. So we say, okay, I'm not going to engage in idle gupshup for another 2 or 3 days with my friend. Okay, I'll try and be more meaningful, because the gupshup is leading to all sorts of nonsense and just fanatical ideas or whatever. So, like that. So, regret, a sense of compassion, an actual antidote to the action, various kinds of purification methods, and then determination to reduce or to stop doing the action in the future. So these four methods are very powerful because they're kind of complete process. Yeah, like that.
Wow, I hope you guys are taking notes. That was
Well,
deep stuff. Thank you so much.
it can be read about in books also, obviously. It's called the four opponent powers. The four opponent powers. Yeah.
The four opponent powers. That's what you
They,
can search for in Google. Awesome.
they oppose the negative actions. Yeah. Yeah.
So now we have, I was really happy for the viewers who didn't notice, but
Yeah.
Kabir ji has moved on to the four non-virtues of speech as well. Lying and gossip and harsh words and divisive talk. I guess there's more to read about in the book, and I'd like to use this time to just stay with some of the body-related questions that we have, because you have stirred up quite an hornet's nest
A
here.
hornet nest,
So,
a mosquito nest, yes. Aren't we
exactly.
liberating the mosquito into its next life? No, unless you're a great yogi, you can't liberate it. It will go where its karma is taking it. And a mosquito's karma is not that great for we be reborn as a mosquito again. So you're not liberating it. It will have a rebirth, and it won't be a good rebirth because it's a mosquito. Most probably another animal rebirth of some kind. So yeah, you're not liberating it. You're actually being selfish and pretending you're liberating it. That's more likely to be the case. I think we should be careful of our powers to liberate beings by killing them. We can't do that yet. Maybe some great yogis can do that. But how many of us are
So
great yogis?
Madhu has a question which I've thrown up on the screen
Yeah.
about killing a cockroach rather than multiple cockroaches because you just allow them to multiply.
Yeah, well, yeah, of course, there's that question. If my kitchen is overrun with cockroaches, what do I do? I agree, it's a very tricky question. The point is, if you do get pest control to come in and get rid of them, then you have to be prepared for the karmic consequences because you are the instigator of that. So, of course, you can then at least have regret and engage in the four opponent powers, as we mentioned, and at least not do it with any kind of happiness. Because although we hate mosquitoes and they don't look nice and we think they're dirty and so forth, they want to live. For them, their right to life is just as important as ours. They will probably survive on this planet longer than we do. They are said to be able to survive nuclear war. So they will survive if we don't. So, they have as much right to be on the planet as we do. But yeah, they're getting in our way, aren't they? But maybe it can also help us to clean up our kitchens and our drains, and then they won't come so easily. But if we have dirt all around us, they will multiply. Yeah, but it's a tricky question. The point is to try not to do any of these actions without regard for the consequences, and to have some reverence for life, and not to easily take life. Life is something very precious for whoever it belongs to, whether it's a human or a mosquito or a whale, whatever. So we should be careful how we treat other beings.
And another very deep question, I think, which would apply to all the non-virtues, that the thought and the action have the same result in terms of
No,
karma.
obviously not. If I think, oh, I want to come and strangle Sandeep Nath, that's one thing. That's not a good thought. But if I actually go to your home in Gurgaon and strangle you, obviously that's worse. Obviously, someone has lost their life, a wife has lost their husband, a father and mother
Yeah.
have lost their son, you have lost your life, I will go to jail, whatever. So obviously, huge karma. This is a whole other topic. What constitutes a complete action of killing is the intention,
Hmm.
and then the delusion involved, anger or attachment of some kind, then the actual action and the completion of the action. And if I complete the action and don't feel any regret whatsoever, then it's a complete karmic action of killing. Whereas just thinking about it, no way it's a complete
Hmm.
action. But it's not a great thought, is it? To want to kill people. It's not a nice thought. It has a karmic result, but obviously not the same as actual killing. No.
So, killing, of course, is a big deal. But let's say we have thoughts. I'll like to discuss this with you. Guru Pranachandra says that in terms of gossip. Now, these days, even forwarding messages on WhatsApp is tantamount to gossip if you haven't got it from source. Now, what's the karmic consequence of something like that?
Well, it depends on the message and your motivation. Say it's a nice
Yeah,
thought,
I mean, I'm talking about messages that are incendiary,
which are what? Sorry.
which would have repercussions in causing social upset or
Ah, right.
scaring the majority about corona, for instance.
Yeah, 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 yeah. That obviously is. Yeah, that would
It's gossip. I mean,
have a consequence. Yeah, of meaning you would be more involved in gossip. You would hear a lot of meaningless and pointless things in the future, this life and next lives, and one would just have more and more mental confusion because idle gossip does not is not conducive to mental clarity, is it? And good
right.
motivation. It's just jo marzi bol rahe, So obviously, it's going to lead to a kind of confused mental state and a sense of not caring what comes out of your mouth. So the karmic consequence of that is that people don't also take your words seriously. That's one karmic
Hmm.
consequence. The karmic consequence of lying is that people don't believe you. Maybe they believe you now, but the future consequence is people won't believe you, even when you're telling the truth. That is said to be a karmic consequence of lying. Quite apart from then the habit of lying again and again and again. So all of
The
these,
the wolf story we've heard. Yeah.
yeah. So every action has at least four consequences. The main
And like
consequence, the habit, you get the same result yourself, and then there's an environmental effect. So you could say the world environment now is the result of all of our negative karmas. And look at the mess we've made. Look at the mess we made.
and that's my cue for urging people to look at renewal as the antidote, because now the power is in your hands. The habits are what you do, and this is your unexpected role in saving the planet,
Yeah.
because you can just make certain habit switches, and you've got the book to know what to do about it. But that's what's going to guide you. And so also these shows that we have every day at 9 o'clock, same page. I'd urge you to subscribe to this channel so that you get notifications and you can be in the loop. Tomorrow we're having a very, very interesting talk on a completely different subject, which is also part of how our relationships and our egos play out. But we're looking at it from the point of view of game theory. Game theory, we have a game theory expert with us, and we're going to discuss how that impacts human consciousness and what we know from that perspective. So I urge you to be back at 9 o'clock tomorrow. And I'm completely mindful that we are above 20 minutes now, but I would like to get back to Kabirla before I let you guys go, because A, we haven't finished with the three karmic consequences of the non-virtues of the mind, and B, like Kabila said, there is so much that we can keep talking about. So I'm just going to let him keep explaining this to us. It's a very interesting session. We're getting very good feedback about it.
Well, I should point out that this is not red wine, it is ruafza, just in case anyone is drinking wine and talking about karma. Not that drinking wine is bad, but wouldn't be very appropriate on this channel. So yeah, well, you want me to talk about the tree of mind, Sandeepji?
Also, there's a question that popped up: live and let live. Is that being selfish?
Live and let live. That's good. That's good, I would say. By and large, live and let live. Yeah. Instead of live and let die, which is, I think, a James Bond movie. Yeah, live and let live is good. Yes, yes. I think the warm
Yes.
heart, good heart, a kind attitude is the main thing, If we have a kind attitude and an intelligent attitude, we'll naturally, I think, not want to engage in a lot of these negativities. We will not want to harm people with our speech. We will not want to have thoughts of malice, thoughts of
Hmm.
greed, uh, you know, wanting what other people have. We won't have thoughts of envy and jealousy, you know, and our mind then won't be so full of wrong views, and very
Hmm.
egotistical sort of consciousness. There's a lot of ego around, as you will have noticed, and one notices it more in world leaders, but it's there in us. And the more we engage in unwholesome activity, the more it bolsters, more it builds up this ego, which is the source of all problems, all unhappiness comes from this ego consciousness. Me, I, me, mine. That's the cause of our suffering. Whereas cherishing other people, helping others, that's the cause of happiness, really. So my
So is
teacher said,
that
real happiness, he said, starts when you begin to cherish other people. When you cherish others, that's when real happiness starts. Now it's all knuckly happiness, temporary. Yeah,
is that how we inadvertently contaminate the mind?
absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
The three non-virtues
Keep
of
on
the
doing it.
mind
Yeah,
that have karmic impacts.
and it affects the environment because the inner elements are affected by the mind. Inner elements, the five elements, are connected with the outer elements. If our inner elements are disturbed, it affects and disturbs the outer elements. So when the whole of humanity is disturbed, it affects the whole cosmos. And then there's feedback. So it just keeps on getting worse. Yeah.
Right.
So it's in our hands. We should be responsible. We're human beings, not rats or cockroaches. So we should know better, isn't it? So yeah,
Absolutely. I think on that note of being mindful of our higher consciousness and utilizing that for our and others' benefit, we've got to start looking at the way we live. And just another question, just before closing, uh, Kabiji, from the point of view of this lockdown and the corona having come in, do you think we have already started experiencing some shifts in consciousness?
some people have, some people have, some people are slowing down and paying attention, but we have to make it work, don't we, on the larger level, the social level, the global level. Some of our leaders are yet to catch up. You should make sure they log into renewalism. They might get some good ideas. Yes,
Thank
I
you.
think we should do that.
Thank you. That is so kind. Okay, Kabirji, thank you so
Yeah.
much. Viewers, lovely having this show with you today. And come back tomorrow at 9 o'clock. We're talking about game theory. And see you. Have a good night. Enjoy. Take care.